Thank you, everybody. As they said, I'm James Chappell, President and CEO of SCBio. So I'm going to zoom way back out and talk about what's happening in the state. We have all of this great momentum. We have all these people with individual companies, but how easy should you set up a company here? Should you start a company here? Traditionally, I don't know, a decade ago, the answer is probably no. But hopefully I'm going to talk about some things today that show you that we have a ton of momentum, and it really is a great time to be in the life sciences industry for South Carolina. So if we want to go forward really quickly, for those of you who don't know, we are a nonprofit. In a nutshell, anything to grow life sciences we do. Policy, innovation, entrepreneurship, workforce. We work a lot, very closely with Clemson and South Carolina. Most of our big pharma companies all the way down to 1 or 2 person early stage companies. So the next slide. So as I said, why is South Carolina the next place for innovation? Why does life sciences make sense here? We already have a lot of great data. So if we go to the next one, according to a national bio report that just came out a few months ago, South Carolina had the 6th fastest growing life sciences industry in the country over the past 5 years. And the next one, you can see, if you look at pharma individually, it's top 5. And really, if you take out some states with absolutely no baseline at all, I think South Dakota or someone was on there because they added 100 jobs and had 300% growth. If you take out states without a real baseline, South Carolina is probably 2nd or 3rd in the country when it comes to growth in the pharmaceutical industry. The next one, Charleston was ranked the fastest growing life science hub in the country. Now that's for new establishments. So that's a lot of small companies, mostly coming out of MUSC, but faster growing than any other place, Boston, San Diego, all the places that you traditionally think of. And then the next slide, and Greenville, and this was a surprise, I think even to us, CBRE had Greenville as the 20th best city for life sciences manufacturing talent, and over much bigger cities like Atlanta and Detroit and other places where we didn't necessarily expect Greenville to show up this high on the list. But yet another data point that shows we already have a really solid foundation. If we go to the next one, and then because of that, a huge shift for those of you who've been here for a while, the governor and the Commerce Department have life sciences as a top 3 priority for the state. So that's important because now we can have a lot more resources and a lot more energy and a lot more focus on growing the life sciences. Obviously, before it's been dominated, if you go way back, by textiles, and then since the 90s has been automotive and aerospace. So it's really, really hard to get any sort of oxygen to talk about life sciences. I always say it's very easy to stand in front of a BMW or an F-16, and if you have Scout, for those of you who follow in Columbia, and you have a $4 billion investment, those are white whales. It's easy for a politician and an economic developer to say, hey, look at this, look what we did. Sometimes it's a little more complicated. You can still obviously do that if you have an Eli Lilly or a Pfizer, put the big manufacturing plant. But one of the things that you'll see that we talk about is it's a little bit harder, but I think more important for the long-term health of the state to talk about some of the people we've heard from today. The person who has the 3 to 5 or 10 person company, but is developing a drug for cancer or for some illness that we're treating. But so it's huge that the state recognizes that, and we're putting more emphasis on that. So the next slide. And you can see, again, back to the foundation. We have real clusters that have formed. You can see these are life science establishments across the state, real big cluster in the upstate, sort of equal, a little different in Charleston, and then Columbia 3rd, and there's sort of a seed up in the York County, obviously being a Charlotte suburb, and Rock Hill now has a real flag in the ground where they want life sciences. Wake Forest just moved their med school down there. You have Novant and Atrium that are very aggressive. So a lot of attributes about Rock Hill that doesn't get talked as much about. But those are the 3.5 clusters that are already there. So the next one, which is great, and I probably talked about this last year, we have the growth. That's fantastic. We could be happy with that. But our goal at SCBio, I think the goal of the state, the goal when I talk to leadership at Clemson and USC and MUSC is how do we take this growth, this sort of once in a lifetime for a whole lot of reasons opportunity, and go from growth to leadership. So our goal, and we're working really hard towards, when people talk about life science ecosystems, that they talk about Boston, they talk about RTP, and they talk about South Carolina, where it's not odd or weird. You don't have to justify why you're keeping your company here. So that's where we are now. That's that next step where we want to continue that growth, but we want to move up the value chain. So part of that is, again, we have a unique opportunity. I'm sure most of you know, and if you go to our cities, and even Clemson, when I went here, it's changed a lot. The people that are coming here, we're fourth in in-migration, according to most publications. Per capita, we're number one, and we're only behind much bigger states. We're about 40th in footprint when you look at South Carolina. We're only behind Texas and Florida, and depending on the ranking, North Carolina. Sometimes we're ahead of North Carolina. So we're third or fourth in people moving here. So we've worked with our marketing agency and have the term Life Plus Science. You like the mountains? Come to the upstate. You like the coast? Go to Charleston. You want to be, I grew up in Columbia. We could be either one in an hour and a half. You need to be a big city? Go to Rock Hill near Charlotte. So come do great science. We have a lot of great scientists here and a lot of great things coming here, but have the quality of life that you want to. So that's something that didn't happen. When I graduated from Clemson, I got my PhD from LSU, so a little bit, but my loyalties certainly lie this week with Clemson. There wasn't really much of an industry here. And so actually, I've been back at this job for about 3 years. And when I first got recruited to come back, I said, I don't know. I don't think there's a real industry here. And obviously, I was wrong, but we're really just at the, I think at the big growth scale right now. So the real advantage we have, and I could talk about this for a whole nother 30-minute segment. Certainly the biotech and pharma industry is a real mess right now. No one's investing. People are upside down. Boston, I heard it's gone up. I heard 16 million square feet of empty lab space. The last I heard is 20 million square feet of empty lab space in Boston. Why? Sort of like the housing bubble. You had a lot of companies. We had a VC panel a few months ago. People were getting term sheets in 24 hours. Very much like the housing bubble. They said, oh, you need a term sheet, here you go. And so people got upside down. And so most of what you see now is companies that probably should have never gotten to the size that they got, but it's 200, 150, 300 person companies that are collapsing and dying. That's actually a huge advantage for us because we don't have all of that weight and infrastructure. It's an advantage that we're a later moving ecosystem. So we can build our ecosystem and not be burdened by a lot of that and focus on our earlier stage companies and growing those and also build for the future. And so we did a study with Deloitte, and a lot of that came out. We said, we have this growth, but what do we need to do? What are we going to be good at? There's rising prices and a lot of pressure on regulatory change. We have huge patent cliffs in the pharma industry. I mean, if you look at that, there's going to be a massive shift in the way that they think and operate. You have a huge shift towards personalized medicine and precision medicine. We're doing great stuff that I'll talk a little bit more at Clemson with Trudy McKay and the Human Genetics Center. So huge shift there. And then you have data and R&D. The data aspect is such a big piece where if you look at reports by McKinsey and Deloitte and others, a lot of the drugs are being discovered on a computer first and then tested in a lab. And I've even had to change my mindset where I thought, oh, well, that's a life science AI company, and that's what I would call a traditional wet lab company. Well, that doesn't really exist anymore. You have to be, you may have one side or the other, but you're all of the above. So the compute side and the data side is just a monumental shift that we're seeing. And you have big players like AWS and Google that are sitting around saying, hey, we have a lot of money. We can do this maybe better than you can, Pfizer or other people. So huge shift there too. So we get to build our ecosystem towards that. We want to mimic a lot of what the Cambridges and the San Diegos are doing, but there's a lot of things we don't want to. We want to change and build for the future. So if we go to the next slide, this is what Deloitte came up with, and I'll talk more about the top three, but there was big, 3 areas that we really wanted to focus on, that looking at the assets that we have, that we think there's an opportunity in the state. And these I won't really get into today. Probably not surprisingly, to do these things, you need great infrastructure, you need talent, you need capital, and you need technology. So if you want to go to the next one, these are really the 3 that we saw. So expand life sciences manufacturing. I won't spend a lot of time on that. I think it's pretty obvious. We are a traditional great manufacturing state. We can do more of that. North Carolina is probably the leader, certainly one of the leaders in the pharma space, that we need to bring them down a little further. We already have a great foundation in that. We have companies like Thermo Fisher, Arthrex, obviously right down the road, GE Healthcare, Right Dose, which is headquartered here and makes the vast majority of all nebulized products in the country, one of Novo Holdings' best companies in their portfolio. is in the state. So we already have a great foundation for that, and we need to think about and expand that and kind of move up the value chain there. Prepare for the R&D future, and then the innovation ecosystem. So again, this is, you can go forward. This is the manufacturing. I kind of touched on that. Won't spend a lot of time there. I think it's sort of self-explanatory. If we go to the next one, the R&D infrastructure. This is sort of what I mentioned before, and we have a lot of traction here about that precision medicine, the technology, the new devices. I always use the example that, for example, the University of South Carolina has one of the strongest MRI machines east of the Mississippi. They claim it's the strongest. So I think it's 7 Teslas. Someone would know better than me, but if we go to the doctor to get our knee looked at or something, it's usually about 1.5. So that is a huge draw for anyone doing sports injuries or neuroscience. That's why companies want to come here. We need to invest more in that. On the data side, we have a lot of traction. I hope in the next month, we'll probably have 2 companies, that one in California and one in Austin, who want to set up a center of excellence here to do things like digital twins. One of the companies that is one of the heads of AI for IBM, was his background on the West Coast, came to Greenville and fell in love with what we were doing, and they have digital twins that have over a 90% accuracy on predicting whether a cancer drug will work. And obviously way further down to that. It'll work for this group and not this group. We have another one on the quantum space who's already partnering with pharma companies. And I can say, when I tell them about Clemson, they usually already know about Clemson, their eyes light up. They love the compute technology. They love the computer science program. We've already sent them resumes and connected them with professors. They absolutely love Clemson. They love that Georgia Tech is right down the road and RTP is not far away. But they love what the Human Genetics Center is doing in Greenwood. Their eyes light up about Clemson. So we have a lot of momentum there. And again, that's how we prepare to be the future. We want wet lab space. We want the same things that Cambridge has, but we also want a whole lot of computers. And it's still a small enough world that it's easy for us to plant a flag there very quickly. And people would say, oh, wow, what are they doing there? Why are they there? How did they bring in that big partner who's looking at protein folding using quantum computing? I would say probably that's the most momentum that we have is in this compute space, because again, it's early on and no one owns it yet. And a lot of traction there. And I'm not just saying it because I'm here, but the excitement around Clemson and the capabilities that Clemson has been real exciting to these companies. So if we go to the next one, and the one I'll probably spend the most time on, because I think it's the most pertinent today, is developing that innovation ecosystem. And what I mean by that is fostering those companies that are coming out of Clemson, out of USC, out of MUSC, who, unfortunately, because we're not a hub yet, get stuck at two people, 3 people. They get SBIR grants. They get a little bit of funding, but they don't know how to grow a business. They're academic founders. They don't have the connection to capital, to mentors. So we're doing all that we can to make that happen. What I always say is we want our companies to fail, not because they don't have connections or they can't find capital. We want it to be that maybe the science isn't right or it's not the right time. So that is probably my biggest passion as SCBio, because that's how we get to a hub. I always say I would love to recruit Pfizer's headquarters down here. It's probably not happening in my lifetime. What we need is for that company that's sitting in this room maybe, or right down the road, or sitting in Charleston, that's at 2 to 3 people or has had the $300,000 investment. We need them to scale and become our first IPO in the life sciences industry in South Carolina, or the $1 billion acquisition. And we need a lot of those. And once you have that momentum, it gets easier and easier. So it's a huge focus of ours. And then going back to people moving here, we have a lot of companies who want to move here, who are in the Bostons, in the RTP, and we tell them, we can give you connections. We can give you more oxygen where you can't. I had a guy who came down as part of our program, Harvard Medical School. He'd already had a $250 million exit, I think, with AstraZeneca. And he said, we just had a paper, one of a Nature publication, and no one cared, because in Boston it happens all the time. And I said, look, I promise you, if you come here and you're published in Nature, we're going to make a big deal about it. So people are excited about that. So we also have that chance because investments are hard. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're working on that, where I think if we can offer some of these companies $1 million in partnerships, like, hey, yeah, we'll be here. In the past, they said, well, no, I got that in 24 hours. I don't need that. So if we go to the next slide to talk about a little of the things that we're doing. Lab space. That's one of the first things we did. Great partnership with Commerce. We have Main Street Labs in downtown Greenville and Blue Sky Labs on the campus of MUSC. Through a partnership with Commerce, we can offer qualified companies a free year of rent at one of these lab spaces. And the thought is we're going to build out infrastructure, and they're going to come in, and even hopefully they graduate out of this. We'll have that lab space for the next company. So we know that we have to have lab space, and we're working on the next phase. These are more Main Street Labs. You can get bigger labs. Blue Sky is more of the 500 square foot lab space. We're already working on partners for planning on more of those graduating and needing the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 foot lab space. So we know that's important. So if we go to the next slide, we had a Founders Day workshop in Charleston, and we're already talking about doing one in the upstate, possibly at Clemson, where, again, you go to a place like Kendall Square, they talk about the bump factor. If you walk outside, you walk into a VC, you walk into someone who's had a successful exit, you walk into the head of R&D for Sanofi. We don't have that yet, but we have a lot of talent here. It's just a little bit disparate. So we're trying to bring it together. We have the head of all of Alzheimer's, global Alzheimer's for Biogen, lives in Charleston. We have all kinds of people who are ex-investment bankers. I've been talking with the head of all investment banking at Morgan Stanley for biotech, is a Citadel graduate, and all of his family went to Clemson. And so I met him, and he's like, hey, one day I want to move back to Clemson. How do I get involved? So we have that. We just have to bring it together. So we had a Founders Day workshop, which is speed dating. We had companies sit at a table to talk about the big things that they would care about. IP and legal, sit down and talk about your problems. Commercialization, drug development, all of these sorts of things that build that network, give them the advice, things like this. And so we did it in Charleston, and we're looking at doing it probably more of a med device focused one up here. So that's something that we really just changed that and tweaked it this past year, and it was very successful, and now we want to continue to build that momentum. So if we go to the next one that I'm really excited about. Some of you, if you've ever heard me talk, have definitely heard me talk about this. We partnered with MassBio, our equivalent out of Boston, and we now just started our third cohort called SCBio Drive. And if you go to the next one, you'll see how that's kind of set up. We've been therapeutics focused so far. Next cohort in the spring, we're going to do more precision medicine around diagnostics and biomarkers. But that is an unbelievable accelerator where it's not only open to South Carolina companies. We said we want the best science to happen. Luckily, we've had a lot of South Carolina companies get accepted with no thumb on the scale. We have a Clemson company that I think we announced it, or maybe we're announcing it today, that got accepted doing more neuro work that will be in this cohort. The reason why, and sometimes I have to get some pushback on people of why, the reason why we have people come in from all over. We've had a company from Ireland, from Taiwan, several from Boston, North Carolina, Florida. A couple of reasons. One, I said when they come here, we have a demo day in Charleston, a lot of them want to stay. And we can connect them to people, and they say, well, you can give me free lab space, and you can connect me to these people. So they're interested in staying. And we know a lot of them won't, although I think 9 out of the 11 people who've graduated from the cohort have expressed interest in moving to South Carolina. So that tells you the momentum that we have and how we have to maximize this. But we know if they go back, that's okay too, because we've had so many people come in and say, wow, I had no idea that was happening in South Carolina. And then let me introduce you to this person. And actually, this person's from South Carolina. Let me make that introduction. That's how I got introduced to the Morgan Stanley biotech investment banker. He had no idea this was happening, but through those connections. And so our companies go through each week. So Eli Lilly is our drug development leader. They teach people on the best way to do drug development. Deloitte is our commercialization expert. Biogen talks about how to partner with a pharma company. Maynard Nexon, IP and legal. MedPoint has done regulatory. Inspire, our marketing agency. Life Science does pitch. Venture South. A lot of you know Clemson, Matt Dunbar reads that. The 8th largest syndicated angel as far as investment in the country. So we're doing more with them. So, and then they get 5 mentors that go all the way through that we match. So we'll have a neuroscience expert, a search and evaluation expert from Lilly, from Novartis, from Sanofi, from J&J, from Morningside Group, all these things that the companies come out and are completely different. And then we have the demo day at the end. So really excited about that. It's gotten us on the map. For some of you, these are probably household names. It's gotten this. I just did interviews with Genetic Engineering News, which is, I laugh. My parents get way more excited. I was on the Charleston 5 o'clock news, and they're really excited about that. I tell them I was in stat or BioCentury or genetic engineering news. I'm like, oh, are those good? I was like, yes, those are what I want to be in. But this has gotten us airplay where they say, why is MassBio partnering with you? What do they get out of this? And we get to tell them all the great things that are happening. So this has been huge as far as visibility. And again, we just started our third cohort and are working towards setting up funds and other things to make it even better. I think we go to the last slide. With Venture South, again, we have a cohort called the Palmetto Beacon Fellowship, partnered with the Department of Commerce. But essentially, they bring in high net worth individuals and say, hey, let us make it easy. Let's educate you on term sheets, the difference between a convertible note and a safe and a priced round. And we're going to make it really easy for you to invest in a life science company. And it can be as little as $5,000 or as much as you want it to be. And we want you to spread the risk. So and then the great thing with the partnership with MassBio, the CEO of MassBio, Kendall, happened to be down here in the meeting when we were talking about that separately. And I was meeting with Charlie from Venture South, and she was like, wow, that sounds really cool. Can we do that too? And so he said, yeah, absolutely. So that's why it's called Palmetto Beacon. Thank you to ChatGPT. We said, hey, we have this Boston and South Carolina thing. What should we do? So Palmetto Beacon Venture Fellowship, 10 of them are from Boston, 10 of them from South Carolina. We had an event last week in Charleston to learn about how to invest. We'll have another one in Kiowa next week. And then we end with their demo day in Boston. And we switch back and forth on demo day. So their people come down to Charleston and we go up to there. So we have all those Boston eyeballs coming down to South Carolina. So really excited about this. This is another way that there's not a magic bullet. We're 45th in the country for venture capital. There's not a magic bullet. So we work really closely to say, hey, can we get seed investment? And that's really the big valley of death. We're looking for $500,000 usually, up to $1 million to get these companies going. Can we get it through this? And we'll have several cohorts of this and give them a pipeline. We work closely with SCRA. SCRA and SC Launch is looking more and more at these kinds of investments. So we're just trying to kind of stack the wins, give them free lab space, find this money for them. And then again, with everything sort of being all an upheaval across the country, this is where I tell people it's the opportunity for us because we can actually jump people because there's a lot of dry powder sitting on the sideline. In 18 months and 24 months, I always say if I actually knew I wouldn't be here, I'd be much, much wealthier sitting somewhere. But in some short time period, that money's going to move off the sideline and start investing again. It's all sitting there. If you look at the PitchBook data and all the reserves people have. So what I hope is, again, we're lucky that we're a younger ecosystem. When all the money moves off the sideline, we say, what the hell's going on in South Carolina? Why do they have all these healthy Series A, ready for Series A companies that are healthy and ready to invest in? When I look around the other country, other parts of the country, it's death and destruction. But South Carolina has really good companies that clearly have had good mentoring and have capital and everything else. So it's a real opportunity for us to continue to move up that value chain. But we have a short time period. I always tell people we can't mess around. This is my preach to the commerce and the state because it's a little slower sometimes to get them to do things, but they're great partners and they do a lot. But this is a short timeline. We can't sit here in 3 years because we're going to have missed this opportunity because things will be different. So I think the last slide, if you just go to that, if you're interested in a much, much deeper dive, if you take that QR code, that is the link to the full Deloitte strategic report that we had done last November. So that's obviously a very quick overview, but again, we have a once in a multi-generational opportunity. And I always kind of close things by saying it's exciting, but it's also scary that if we don't take advantage, if we're not strategic, and that goes to the state, that goes to Clemson, USC, MUSC, us, and everyone else, we're going to wake up in a decade and think, man, we missed a huge opportunity. That growth was nice, but we really didn't get anywhere where we could have. So exciting, and also it can keep you up at night of thinking about, are we moving fast enough and making the right decision? So happy to talk more about it if anybody has questions, but I appreciate your time. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
So if I'm thinking about starting a new company or wanting to set up more of a business enterprise in the biotech space in South Carolina, can I reach out to SCBio and have you guys sort of
absolutely
educate, or someone can reach out to you and educate on what's available?
Yes, we do that a lot, and we are always happy to start with us And then we make the connections to a free lab space or a potential partner or connections to SCRA, SC Launch for potential funding. So we are always happy to do that. And before I forget too, because Carla asked me to do it and I knew I was going to forget, but I didn't. If you're a student, whether you have a new company or not, we have free membership for students. So that's a great way to get connected. And that will take you to the report. And I'll point out too, for early stage companies, if you're a life science company, it's not free, but it's close, $500 for a membership. So if you are a life science company, and if you're under a few people, 5, I think is then you can have a $500 membership. So we try to make it very easy to get our early stage companies in and involved.
I have 2 questions. Do you have to be a South Carolina-based company to be a member of South Carolina Bio, or can you?
No,
Okay.
we have a lot of companies that are not.
Okay, great. And then my next question was with regards to the Palmetto Venture Fellowship. That's amazing idea. So congratulations.
Thank you.
On that. And for those fellows that are a part of that consortia that come together, you're educating them on SAFE and A and how to invest. And are you providing them with opportunities for companies like Como, like my company, to pitch to them seeking investment? Because after you educate them, then they're going to want to know, okay.
So yeah, that's a great question. A little bit of that is still TBD, but we are still going to have some vetting process, but this may change. But so Venture South has like a portal that you can go in as a Venture South member. And what we're talking about is standing up a biotechnology vertical. So if I only care about seeing biotechnology, then it's very easy for me to go see that. There will still be probably by Venture South or somebody. So Drive companies will be in because they've been through all of the vetting already. They've been selected by Eli Lilly and Biogen and others to even make it in. There'll be some sort of vetting process on getting on there. That won't be us, but that will probably be Venture South who decides which companies sort of make it that they want to show their members. So I'm not sure how that will work, but yes, we are going to do that in some form or fashion.
Okay, so for now, if Como, for example, wanted to get on South Carolina Bio's or the Venture South's radar as a potential company to invest in, how do we do that?
I think that it would be a connection to Venture South right now. So we would make the connection, and then they would look. We actually just did that for several companies. We just sent them, I think, 5 slide decks for them to review with their board to see if any are.
The minimum requirement is this just be a member of South Carolina Bio, but you don't need to be a South Carolina Bio-based company.
No, you don't. For that, you don't have to be an SCBio member for that. I mean, obviously, for us, very transparently, we're going to promote South Carolina companies because that's our job. But Venture South invests in companies outside of South Carolina all the time. They're not. I mean, they're located here, but they're not geographically bound to South Carolina.
Thank you for the good information you have provided. I'm a graduate student who's planning to graduate soon. So for the students, are there any scope after graduation? And my work is interdisciplinary. So for such kind of students, are there any job opportunities in a way?
Yes, and the short answer is become a member and talk to Carla because we have, I guess that would be academia and industry, where you can go. We have a lot of companies sort of the same as Founders Workshop, but different scope. You have speed dating, and you can go find out what all of the companies are looking for. You can find out what's going to make you stand out. You can have those sit downs and find out exactly what people are looking for or what makes a match for you. I don't know, Carla, if you know the next one.
My name's Carla Whitlock. I'm with SCBio. Our next academia and industry event will be in Columbia in a few weeks. And if you go to our website, under our events page, you can register to attend that, and we'd love to have you.
And I think, we're doing one in Clemson.
Yes, we will be doing one in Clemson later on this fall. And I do know that so far we have, for the event in Columbia, companies including Lonza, RhythmLink, and I believe IMCS are just 3 of the companies that will be in attendance. And so we'd love for you all to attend that in Columbia. It is at the University of South Carolina. Yeah.
Yes, we're a
Do
statewide
all the good
organization. We
things
love
that
all of our
we're a
universities.
A statewide organization, but we would
And
love to have you.
and Polymed, I don't know if they'll be there. Polymed is very involved. Probably a lot of you know them. They were a Clemson spin out, the Clemson professor. They've now got well over 200 people in the bioabsorbables by polymer. Arthrex is involved a lot. And I'll say too, you can see maybe for those students, I know we talked about dynamics. I get up here as the president CEO and spout big ideas and then know no facts. That's why I bring Carla, who gets to tell y'all like actual when dates are and things like that. So that's part of that dynamic. Yeah, and we do have a lot of, I mean, as a member, we have networking events. We had, I think just this week, we had our breakfast and bio. We bring people in and we have one person speak, but it's also networking. We have our annual conference in February. We usually have 500 to 600 people that attend that. So I think someone had it, I think you had it earlier, of showing up to things. Show up and talk, and you'll be amazed at the doors that open, because we hear that all the time. Like, look, if anybody is sitting in between computer science and life science, I've got companies that are looking for you. They've asked me for resumes to send them Clemson students specifically. So well, thank y'all. I appreciate it.